food together at the table and you're laughing, you're telling stories, maybe ones you've heard several times every single year from the same person, and you're still laughing about it. And it's just a time that you look forward to every year. And then imagine when one of your closest friends or a family member decides to betray you in front of everyone else, just out of nowhere. Have you ever felt a sense of betrayal in your life? Has someone like truly been active in your sabotage of your life? You don't have to say that out loud or anything like that, but I'm going to guess that most of us probably have experienced that in some way, shape, or form. Betrayal is not, it's not like a mistake. It's not like kind of a little white lie kind of thing. It is an intentional sabotage of someone else's life. It is something that is vindictive. It's something that's planned. It is not something that just happens. It is something that is intentional. And this happened to Jesus amongst one of his closest 12 disciples here at this Passover meal, one that they had every single year. I mean, just imagine this person. Judas was in Jesus' corner, one of his closest 12 there 100% of the time for him, and now is threatening to dismantle everything that seemingly Jesus has been working toward this whole time. And while Jesus knew this was going to happen, his disciples did not. And of course, they became greatly distressed. They go like, well, who is that going to be? It came just as a shock to them as it would probably to you when that close friend or family member betrayed you. And so I just want to encourage you this tonight that if you have been betrayed, Jesus knows exactly what that feels like, as he was also betrayed. But even more so, the question also to reflect on that I want you to do in a moment is, have you ever betrayed Jesus? You know, we do this when we say things like, we're going to follow him 100%. We're with you all the way, Jesus. But then when the time comes to show that, we do the opposite. So I just want to take a couple minutes for you and write down, is there something in your life you've done to betray Jesus? Feel free to write that down after the question 1 section on your sheet, and then we'll move to the next part. Next, I'm going to read from Matthew chapter 26, starting at verse 36. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and became anguished and distressed. And then he said to them, "My soul is deeply grieved, even to the point of death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself down with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will." And then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. He said to Peter, "So couldn't you stay awake with me for 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cup cannot be taken away unless I drink it, your will must be done." There's a moment when he knows what's about to happen after he's been betrayed, where he says, "God, if there's any other way to do this, Can you do that? I don't know if you've ever had a moment like that where you've been going through something and you've asked God, hey, is there some other way that you can do this than what's going on right now? I'll take anything. This is what Jesus asks the Father twice. God, if there's any other way, can you do this? That is lament, my friends. It's just a moment here of brutal honesty. I mean, Jesus knows where the path is leading. He knows what he must do, what he's called to do. And in his lament, he cries out to God. He asks boldly, if you've been with us, as part of lament. Have you ever done this with God? So has Jesus. Of course, Jesus chooses to trust God. That's the key to lament we've talked about in our series. He chooses to trust God. He says, not my will, but your will be done. But have you done that? Is there something where you've asked God to find another way and he hasn't? What is that for you? Go ahead and write that down in question number 2. Let's read from Matthew 26, starting in verse 57. Now the ones who had arrested Jesus led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, and whose house the experts in the law and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him from a distance, all the way to the high priest's courtyard. And after going in, he sat with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were trying to find false testimony against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find anything, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, this man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. And so the high priest stood up and said to him, have you no answer? What is this that they are testifying against you? But Jesus was silent. The high priest said to him, I charge you under oath by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus said to him, you've said it yourself. But I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Have you ever experienced someone making up lies about you to hide their wrongdoing or just to watch you suffer? Has this happened with someone in the church? That's exactly what Jesus was going through. Even as they brought people, they told to spread lies. Even in the trial, there wasn't enough evidence against him. And they still kept looking and looking. All because Jesus didn't fit their boxes of how God was supposed to work, about how the church was supposed to function. And so they manipulated others to tell lies to get him convicted, to make him look guilty, to discredit his life. Has that ever happened to you? If that has, I'm here to tell you tonight that Jesus knows exactly how you feel. And then even then, with whether someone has done that to you, the other question is, have you ever said something about Jesus that wasn't true? Or maybe you've heard others claim something in the name of Jesus. Maybe you have that isn't even close to who he really is. What is that? Go ahead and write that down in question number 3. Next, we're going to read from Matthew 26, starting in verse 69. Now, Peter was sitting outside of the courtyard, and a slave girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it in front of them all. "I don't know what you're talking about." When he went out to the gateway, another slave girl saw him and said to the people there, "This man was with Jesus the Nazarene." He denied it again with an oath. "I do not know the man." After a little while, those standing there came up to Peter and said, "You really are one of them too. Even your accent gives you away." At that, he began to curse, and he swore with an oath, "I do not know that man." At that moment, a rooster crowed. And then Peter remembered what Jesus had said. "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. I don't know if you've ever believed in someone or something so much, like 100% all in, like a friend who's your ride or die kind of friend. But when the time gets really tough for you, the time that you need them the most, when you're going through the toughest things in your life, they don't show up, or they bail on you, or they tell you they're going to be there and they never show up, or they start hanging out with other people and whispering behind your back. It's like you never existed. The person that you thought for sure was a good friend, but when it got tough, would even say, we really weren't that great of friends, if friends at all. That is what Peter did. One of Jesus' closest disciples, some may argue his closest. Jesus even predicted that he would do it. Of course, someone like Peter is like, absolutely no way that's going to happen. And then when the moment got tough, when Jesus gets arrested, something so shocking to them, when the rubber met the road, when it came time for him to stand for the Messiah, for his friend, he denied even knowing who he was. If you've ever had someone like that, and they bailed on you when the time got really tough, when you really needed them the most, I'm here to tell you tonight that Jesus knows exactly how you feel. I'm sure there was a time of lamenting for Jesus when everybody was fleeing him in this moment. But there's also opportunities for us every single day where we have a chance to stand alongside Jesus, to show the world what he's like through our life. And in those moments, in those opportunities that we have, sometimes we don't show up. We miss out on the opportunity. We misrepresent him. You have a chance to speak up, to say something, and you don't. To stand alongside him in these moments when everybody else is ridiculing him and say nothing. What has been that moment for you? What's a moment for you where that's happened? Take some time to fill that in question number 4. Let's hear this next text from Matthew chapter 27, starting in verse 45. Now from noon until 3, darkness came over all the land. At about 3 o'clock, Jesus shouted with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani? That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, this man's calling for Elijah. So immediately one of them ran and got a sponge and filled it with sour wine and put it on a stick, and he gave it to him to drink. But the rest said, leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah will come and save him. And then Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and gave up his spirit. Just then the temple curtain was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks were split apart and the tombs were open. Think about it. I don't know if you thought about this. And the bodies of many saints who had died were raised. They came out of the tombs after his resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people. That's got to be a very weird scene. Anyway, that's not tonight. Now, when the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were extremely terrified and said, this one was God's son. I know we've said this in the series if you've been with us. Oh, I have some more to read. Sorry. Many women who had followed Jesus from Galilee and given him support were also there, watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. We've said this throughout our series if you haven't been with us, but we've asked a question like this many times. Have you ever felt in the really tough times like God isn't listening? Even that like God has abandoned you. So Jesus is hanging on the cross, being humiliated and tortured and about to die. And he felt like that too in this moment. And there's a lot of debate that people want to talk about this question, like, did God really abandon Jesus? Did God the Father really abandon Jesus the Son? And they get all these questions and debates and stuff like that. But if you've been with us through the series of Lament, the last part of how to lament, after you're asking boldly, which he's doing, he feels like God is not listening, that he's abandoned him. He feels this way, is choosing to turn to trust God. That's the key to lament. But in this moment, he's asking the question, have you forsaken me? Which we already have heard this question before in our series from Psalm 22. We talked about this earlier. This he's pulling from this psalm. And to think even in this moment, as he's hanging on the cross, ready to die, there are still people who are mocking him to his face, who are making fun of him, who are enjoying watching him suffer, for thinking things like, well, if he really is who he says he is, then he should prove himself to us. And here's the irony about tonight. In all of these moments that are happening, every single thing that you've been writing down, everything that happened to him, knowing exactly how you feel, ironically, on this cross, he's actually dying for them and for you and for me. And they don't even realize it. If you've ever felt that God hasn't been listening to you, or that he's turned his back on you, Jesus has felt the same way. He knows exactly how you feel. So maybe in a moment of honesty and transparency for you, what is that moment for you? What's the moment, maybe it's happening now, where you felt like God's not listening? Write that down on your sheet in question number 5. I told you at the beginning when we started that there's 2 threads for tonight. One is really vital to show you that in the times that have been really difficult for you and all the things that you go through or circumstances that have happened to you, whether that be someone that betrays you or someone that tries to testify falsely against you, to make up lies about you, or those people that you thought were your friends, and when the time got really tough, they were nowhere to be found. The honest moments where you're asking questions, does God really care? Is he listening to me? Has he abandoned me? Or where you've bargained with God, is there any other way you can do this? The one thread tonight is Jesus knows exactly how you feel. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say things like, you don't understand what I'm going through. And I guess in the exact circumstances and situations and whatever's happening, that's true for us. Like, yeah, we don't know exactly what you're going through, but some of us know what you're going through. And Jesus definitely knows what you're going through, because it happened to him. And that wasn't everything tonight. I didn't talk about everything that was going on in those last few hours. Way, way more than that of what he had to go through that was so difficult. The writer of Hebrews says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, I think it's on a slide. Thank you. Let us hold fast to our confession. For we do not have a high priest incapable of sympathizing with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet without sin. Therefore, let us confidently approach the throne of grace to receive mercy and find grace whenever we need help. Jesus knows how we all feel in these situations that we mentioned earlier, and in his humanness, he lamented. He still chose to trust, even when he's hanging on a cross. And then the other thread that we talked about is there's also things that we've done to him to cause him this grief. That's what Jeremiah talks about in Lamentations with the chosen people of Israel. We would be naive to think that we haven't participated in nailing Jesus to the cross. We think something that happened so long ago is not something that we participate in, but Jesus wasn't just dying for the people then. He was dying for you and for me for doing the same things that they did. Because we know none of that stuff happens today, right? That was only in Bible times. Right? I mean, weirdly enough, when you talk about this Friday, it's not really that good. I mean, what's really good about it? I mean, if you think about it, Jesus was falsely accused, falsely arrested, had a bogus trial from his own church leaders, and sent to a government, an authoritarian government, that executed him. That's what happened. There was nothing pleasant about that in the eyes of the world. Nothing at all. It seems that death won. It seems that evil won. It seems that all the things that God is against, his wholeness for all of creation, had won. Authoritarian regimes won. Corrupt church leadership won. Those with wealth and power won. Evil was just chalking up another victim. They were just crucifying another revolutionary against the state. And yet, in this moment, Jesus was thinking about you and about them and about all of us. All the ways that we participate in this brokenness. He is lamenting. He's honest with God the Father about finding another way, yet he still chooses to go through with it because he knows what the end result will be. He knows that this suffering he's going through is not the final word. That's part of trusting in who God is, as we talked about in this series. And when we get to Sunday, that is what makes this Friday good. And we'll talk about that on Sunday. But you wrote several of things on your sheet tonight. And so we're going to sing a couple of songs, and you're welcome to just listen or participate in whatever way that you want. But maybe for some of those things, especially if some of those things are happening now, or maybe even as a posture tonight, if you want to turn from those things, whatever those things are, especially if there's something that's like happening right now. The great thing is, when Jesus was hanging on that cross, he was thinking of those things. And you can just lay them at his feet tonight. And the posture would just do that. Whatever that was on that sheet, you can fold it up. You can just lay it at the cross. You can feel free to sit there and pray if you want, or stand there and pray, or stand there and sing, or whatever that may be. And we'll have a couple songs, so you'll have some time to do this. If you just want to talk to him about all the ways that you've fallen short, the ways that you've contributed to the brokenness of creation. The great news is, on this Friday, that he is dying so all of that can be eradicated. He's taking all of that upon himself. Earlier in the series, we talked about that God is actually restraining sin from having its full effect right now. It isn't having its full, as hard as that is to believe. Jesus on the cross is taking the full weight of all of it. For you and for me. because he doesn't want that to be a part of our lives. The last thing God ever wants is for us to be destroyed. And his response is to take that upon himself. And as we trust in him, who shows us what the way of the flourishing life is, we can walk differently. We can live differently. We can have forgiveness. We can start on new ground, which is a great name for a church. You can do that tonight. And it's not like a magic formula. It's just a posture to lay it at Jesus' feet, to recognize that he did that for you because he loves you. You can do that tonight. Hey, thanks for watching the podcast. If you want to connect with us, click one of the links in the description there to get to our page, where there's all sorts of ways that you can find out more information about our church community, what we're doing, and how you can get involved with that. Hope you continue to stay. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share this with your friends if you think it's meaningful, and hope you have a wonderful week. Grace and peace, friends.